Hey guys, Sydney Marathon is coming upon us and there's very little we can do between now and then to get fitter. What we can focus on though is the carb loading aspect as well as the race fueling strategy. I got Gaby to come on today and talk us through the most important things we need to know moving forward so that you get the best benefits out of your fueling and nutrition. Gaby is one of the best sports nutritionists in the entire country. She works with some of the best ultramarathoners in the nation, including Phil Gore, who has the Australian record in the Backyard Ultra, as well as a few other amazing accolades. But she does work with athletes of all abilities and comes from an endurance sport background, so she knows what she's talking about. And I learned so much from having this convo today. If you want to listen to the whole episode, there's a Spotify link in the description to the podcast.
Definitely, carb loading is something that is going to benefit someone's performance, especially when we're talking in this case a marathon.
Now, as a guy that loves science, I've always wondered whether it's actually beneficial to carb load from like a week out, and I'm glad Gaby busted the myth and what I thought was exactly right. And 2 to 3 days before a marathon seems to be the optimum amount of days to carb load before a marathon.
Ideally 2 to 3 days, and it depends on how much the person is willing to consume during those days. Ideally, the recommendation is to aim for 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight per day. So for example, someone who is on the 8 grams per kilo per day may prefer to do over 3 days, so that way they make sure that they have enough carbohydrate consumption in the lead up to the race. Whereas someone who, let's say, is at the 12 end, maybe 2 days is going to be sufficient. Doing it for longer than that is not as helpful, because the thing with carbohydrate loading is that the objective is that we want to get the glycogen stores full. And unfortunately, each of us have a, let's say, a fuel tank, and it's of a particular size, and once that is full, it's done. There's nowhere else you can store it. So once those stores are full, there's no more room to save it except for fat. In that case, it's like, okay, now we have this excess, the body will save it because it's energy. But in this case, the objective is we want to have that premium fuel top up. So that's why doing it longer than 3 days won't make a big difference.
Gaby then talks about how it's more efficient to tap into your carbohydrate fuel source, also known as glycogen, rather than tapping into your fat as your fuel source, which is less efficient. This is relevant when we're talking about hitting the wall, because when you hit the wall, you're tapping into the less efficient fat system, which means that you can't maintain the same intensity compared to when you were using your carbohydrate fuel source.
Carbohydrate is a really efficient fuel. So when you need energy quick, carbohydrate is going to be the body's preferred option because it's very efficient and very quick to convert into energy. So physiologically, what happens when someone hits the wall or is bonking? What is occurring is that the carbohydrate reserve, the availability of carbohydrate, gets so restricted that you hit a wall and your body doesn't have an alternative but to slow down, because continuing to move at the rate and the intensity at which you were moving is no longer possible. Your body needs to slow down, because now fat is going to be the main energy, and that one takes way more time to be converted into energy. So if you want to keep moving, you need to go slower, otherwise it's going to be impossible.
Now we're going to be taking a look at some misconceptions with carb loading.
The one that I've seen the most recently is the assumption that because someone is eating energy gels or having a sports drink or constantly eating during the race, the carb loading is not going to be important because they are still having carbohydrate during the race. But it's not making up for the lack of glycogen. So someone who does the carb loading, shows up to the start line with the tank full, is going to perform better than someone who is relying on that constant intake of energy, especially when there are other complicating factors that could present, such as having gut issues or or not having interest in food or nausea or something that stops the person from fueling. Having that tank and the fuel available there is going to be extremely helpful in the case of the athlete not being able to consume that energy. And the second misconception is that a lot of people assume carb loading is equal to having a big pasta patty the night before, and that is going to be enough. That as long as you have like a massive bowl of pasta, that is going to be sufficient for you to have a successful carb loading. And as we already talked about, well, actually you need at minimum, I would say 1 day of carbohydrate loading where you're consuming those 8 to 12 grams per kilo. And ideally, I would say for most people, I do recommend both days to make sure that the carb loading was successful.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are on fiber, because I feel like it might be better to avoid fiber when it's getting really close to the race. Is that true?
Absolutely. The risks with carb loading, the biggest one is someone loading on other things that could upset the stomach. In the case of carbohydrate, many options are very high in fiber, especially if someone is concerned about like, oh, I don't want to eat that much sugar because I heard it's not good for me. So they try to carb load on really high fiber foods. And now what they are doing is that, yes, there's a lot of carbohydrate, but now there's a lot of fiber. And that can absolutely cause gut issues because now the amount of fiber is beyond of what's recommended. That's one. The other one is the amount of fat. I mean, I know you mentioned bagels, which by the way are fantastic, but a lot of people will think of carbohydrates as ice cream, pizza, donuts. Yes, they are high in carbs, those foods, but many of them can be really high in fat. And that also can be a problem because now you are loading on carbohydrate and fat. So definitely important to be aware of fiber intake. And the benefit of doing that in the case of fiber is that it means that you are leaning for options that are easier to fit in, let's say. So it's easier to, let's say, drink a glass of orange juice than eating probably 6 oranges to make up for that glass.
Yeah, 100%. Carb density is quite important. And the best example I use, which I recommend people, is the Morton 320 drink mix. Like, it's like 80 grams of carbs with like 500 ml of water. Honestly, if you have that, it feels like it's a good leeway to build more carb storage. And yeah, I always feel more confident going into a longer race like a marathon or ultra marathon when I have that Morton 320 drink mix, because I know that it's literally free extra performance. I love to have like bananas on race morning, but what's your thought of that? Is that actually high in fiber, or is that like good?
No, that's really good. As a dietitian working with endurance athletes, they are probably my favorite food. And that is because they are high in carbs, they are low in fiber, they are easy to carry, they are easy to eat.
Hey guys, it's been a pretty frustrating few weeks. I've been out with an injury for like 5 weeks now, and it just always seems like it's about to be fine, but then it kind of flares up a tiny bit. Not too bad. It's never been above 1 out of 10 pain, to be honest, but I just want to be super safe. Hope this carb loading video is helpful for you. I am deciding to split the carb loading video with the race fueling video, so if you stick around for the next video, it will be all about how to fuel during the marathon. But anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If you think any of your friends will benefit from carb loading tips like the ones you saw in this video, make sure to share it with them. Leave a like if you want more content like this. Also go check out my podcast, Wave Running Podcast. I'd appreciate reviews on that as well, because my podcast is like a side endeavor, but I'm trying to make it a bigger thing, and it will just allow me to get bigger guests on, as well as some like professional runners that will make the podcast like super interesting down the line. So yeah, again, appreciate all the support as usual. I hope I can run again soon. Yeah, I want to keep it real all the time. I think I'm not having that fun over time because I'm not able to do what I love, which is running. But despite that, it is nice to see everyone around me running well. And yeah, I really hope you guys do well at Sydney Marathon, and I'm sure you will. Everyone's been training well from what I can see. And yeah, I'll see you in another video pretty soon.